So obviously after the game against Hawthorn, Collingwood will finally get the breather that they deserve from this treacherous, compact fixture that AFL handed to Collingwood at the start of this season with games that were lined up against GWS, St Kilda, Sydney and then Brisbane. All tough matchups crammed up into the little time that was. Nevertheless, I want to talk about the top 5 players that I think are doing the best for Collingwood right now. I'll look to do this every 4 to 5 weeks to provide an update and further elaborate and just highlight these players and give them their flowers in the moments that they are performing. It might not necessarily be the player with the highest statistics for that period of time. There are going to be other intangibles that we're going to laud. Number 5, he's only played 2 games this season, but I think his impact has been just as big as anyone for Collingwood this year, and that is Billy Frampton. Over the course of the 2 games that he's played, he's averaged 9 intercept possessions, which is a team high right now, 4 intercept marks per game, which is also a team high, 10 spoils, which is also a team high, and earning his own footy as well. 15 disposals, which is pretty nice for someone who's supposed to be a lockdown defender at the moment. Ultimately, it is letting Darcy Moore play loose, and this will pay dividends as the season goes on, and also as Darcy Moore recaptures his judgment on his intercept reads. You can see Darcy still going for every ball in the air. It just seems like his judgment is slightly off. And there will also be a subsequent ripple effect on players like Jeremy Howe and Braden Maynard, and they also have some great intercept marking skills within their own respect. I'm actually quite optimistic about Billy Frampton's career ceiling. I always said if he could improve his intercept marking, I think last season he would average 1.5, at I guess 2.5 by the end of this season would be an incredible feat, given right now he's currently at 4, although he's only played 2 games, so you know the average is always going to be higher, generally speaking. I just think he's really versatile on top of the skill that he's developing live in front of our eyes, being intercept marking. I guess if Will Hoskin-Elliott is Mr. Fix-It, then Billy Frampton must be the heir apparent, because he can play back, ruck and forward, and we saw the job he did on Harris Andrews in that grand final. But in extremely unlikelihood that a Lions fan is watching this, I'll just leave it at that. Billy's best game out of the 2 was clearly St Kilda, where he had to play on Max King, who is going to be a top 5, if not top 3 key forward this year in the AFL. He had 5 intercept marks, 10 intercept possessions, and started the game like a house on fire. It was a match for Collingwood where we saw some improvements, but ultimately we were still unsatisfied as a fan base. However, one of the big ticks that came out from that game was Billy's impact. Number 4 is one of my favourites, Beau McCreary. I feel like he's a silent killer. And I say that because the stats that he earns, I don't think that the general AFL follower will seek these stats because they're not in your face. You know, we're looking at, obviously this one's quite easy to see, but he's averaging 5.3 tackles, which is 4th in the league for the small to medium forwards. He's averaging 23 pressure acts, which is 6th amongst those small to medium forwards. 8.5 defensive half pressure acts, which is 7th amongst the small to medium forwards. Why that is important is because his role is a high half forward. His job is to get behind the ball and be that first layer of defense in that zone. So that stat points to the fact that he is getting the job done on the defensive side when he has to get behind the ball when the opposition are pressing us. On top of all that, in the last 4 games, he's averaging a goal a game and is having 2.3 shots on goal. So also an increase in his stats relative to his previous seasons. If he can be a goal a game, small to medium forward, while doing what he does without the ball, I think he becomes a player that's just as desirable as Lachie Schultz when he played at Fremantle last year. I just think Beau is a real barometer for the team. He applies great pressure for us all around the ground. He sets the tone every game, and while no one else is doing a job pressure-wise, you'll always find him busting his ass like a mouse to cheese when it comes to chasing that ball. It's just an incessant pressure and it doesn't go away. Whether we're down by 30, 40, 50 points or it's a tight game, he's always there. It doesn't matter what the context is. Beau's big game for me was against the Lions. 10 disposals, 2 goals. One was coming out in the 3rd quarter very early on to quell the momentum that Brisbane Lions had and all that dominance they had in that 2nd quarter from clearances and the contested balls. Super important we came out in that manner, and Beau took the responsibility from outside 50 and launched it through the big sticks, which pretty much changed the trajectory of the game from there onward. On top of those 10 disposals, 2 goals, he had a goal assist and 19 pressure acts. So a really well-rounded performance for Bo there. Number 3, I've got Mr. Norm Smith, Bobby Hill. He's averaging 10 disposals, 2 goals, going at 80% goal-kicking accuracy. That's obviously an incredible clip at the moment, considering that the AFL average is around 50, 55 odd. To be at 80% after 4 games is, yeah, I guess mind-boggling really. Bobby is also currently on pace to set a new goal-scoring record for a season. Last season he kicked 33. At the moment, based on his current average, he's expected to kick 44. However, I think there might be even more room for improvement there. I think he can kick a little bit more than 44 this year. But in saying that, I don't really mind who's kicking the bags for Collingwood, as long as we're winning. It can be Bobby, it can be Billy, it can be Brody, it can be Lockie, it can be Reef. I don't mind. But for a personal accolade standpoint, I think an output, I think Bobby has a little bit more than 2 goals per game in his bag this season. If my memory serves me correctly, Bobby's best game so far would be against Brisbane as well. 3 goals in the first quarter, coming back to haunt them after what he did to them in the grand final. Again, sorry Lions fans if you are here, I doubt it. But yeah, he pretty much set the tone very early, got us a nice little kickstart to our game to silence the Gabba crowd, which play a significant role in their games when they're up and about early. He also had 3 tackles inside 50, which complemented our unrelenting pressure that was consistent for the 4 quarters against Brisbane, which was super important considering how poor our hunger had been in the last few games against our previous opposition. Number 2, we've got Whisper, Nicky Deos. Nick is currently averaging 30.8 disposals, 11.5 contested possessions, 7.8 ground ball gets, 5.5 clearances, 23 pressure acts per game, and guess what? They're all team highs. And that is outstanding, just when you think about the fact that he does rotate through the middle and the halfback flank at the moment. Obviously, we're seeing a transition where he is playing halfback flank more predominantly. To be leading contested possessions outside of the midfield, to be leading clearances, to be leading ground ball gets, pressure acts and having to float across the 2 positions, I think it's just a testament to how dominant he is when he plays in either position. He just, I guess, fills the stat sheet with these stats that are super important. I mean, contested possessions don't come easily. Ground ball gets, you got to get below the knees and you got to be clean to actually earn that statistic. Clearances are hard to come by, and pressure acts suggest that you are working your ass off in the contest to apply some pressure to impact that kick or handball. So we can see clearly Nick Deos is hunting greatness in his 3rd year, trying to build on the season he had last year, which will be very hard considering he won the premiership, and that's all that matters. Does he win a Brownlow this season? Do we go back-to-back? Either way, you can see Nick is wanting much more than what he's earned so far in his young career. As far as Nick's biggest game so far this year, you could argue it was against Brisbane because his impact that he had off the halfback flank in tandem with what John Noble was able to achieve. He got, heaps of score launches, involvements and rebound 50s going for the team. So that doesn't go without notice, but I think it's hard to go past the game he had against GWS. He had a game-high 34 disposals, he kicked a goal, he had a game-high 10 clearances, 16 contested possessions, he had over 10 ground ball gets and 32 pressure acts, all game highs. So again, just a testament to his work rate on and off the ball in the contest and his cleanliness below the knees. I think that was a really good game, and it probably just misses out on the 3 votes there just because we were comprehensively beaten by GWS in the end. Hopefully we do see Nick feature across the halfback flank for the longest time this year and rather use him in the midfield as a break the glass in case of emergency. I do think there are players in the midfield who are untested and unproven that will probably want to have a say this year and have an opportunity. Players like Finlay have had a slight sniff. Lockie Sullivan is around the mark. Ed Allen further down the track. Tom Mitchell, Pendles and the goalies, they've still got things to say in the midfield. So I think we do have the luxury where we may not need to put Deos in the midfield full time just yet. As much as I would love to see him fill the stat sheet and just dominate the midfield, I think we need him off the halfback. I also feel like the most important player in every team right now in the AFL is being used on the halfback flank. If they've got running dash and great ball use, they are the most important cog in the team's system. A lot of scores are being generated from the defensive half. to be able to link up with the players in the midfield and subsequently get a good quality, quick entry into the 50. So I think while that is the meta or the method of the game that is working best against the league, I think we have to keep Deos there for at least another season. Moving on to number one, what you guys have all been waiting for, and I don't foresee any of you having any qualms with this. However, let me in the comment section if you strongly disagree with this. I'm going with a fan favorite in Jamie Billy Elliott, currently averaging 14.3 disposals, 6.3 scoring involvements, 2.3 goals per game, which sees him 20th in the league for goals averaged thus far this season, and 1.8 tackles inside 50. Obviously, Billy has been an incredible servant for the club. He's had to overcome a myriad of injuries, namely to do with his back. However, has somehow found a way to overcome these adversities and come back as a more well-versed, well-rounded, just overall better forward for Collingwood. And it's beyond me how he can have so many back injuries and be one of the best pressure forward players in the league at his age. I'm not saying he's old, but he's not young relative to the rest of the league, obviously. But despite the extremely difficult start to Collingwood's season, Billy's looking to eclipse his season's best from 2017, where he was able to kick 34 goals in 17 games. So I'm wondering, averaging 2.3 goals per game, could he potentially see the half century this year? Again, as I mentioned with Bobby, or similar to Bobby's situation, I don't really mind who kicks the goals, but just as personal interest regarding their accolades and their personal aspirations, I think it would be really nice to see one of them hit beyond the 50 goal mark and help out Brodie Myercheck. You see the trend, most of our big games were against Brisbane. Same with Billy, he had a massive game. He kicked 4 goals, kicked timely goals, particularly in the second half. He had 16 disposals, had a goal assist to go with his game. Yeah, like I said, Billy's been a pressure beast. He's averaging 17 pressure acts per game, being a weapon in our forward 50 stoppages. And if you haven't seen my full video analysis on the Lions versus Pies game, you'll see there is quite a lengthy segment where I break down Billy's crafty work inside 50 when it comes to the stoppage work. And he is helped with players like DeGoey and Pendles who give him nice off-ball screens. So definitely consider watching that video after this one if you want to see a little bit more about Billy's forward half stoppage craft. We know Billy is an aerial threat considering his size, so that's a cool little feature in his game that we all appreciate. He has great leading patterns which allows him to take strong marks on the lead against his opposition, and is averaging 69% so far this season compared to, like I said earlier, with reference to Bobby Hill, the AFL average is around the 50-55% mark. Actually, now that I remember, it's actually 48%. I checked this morning. Can confirm it's 48%. It's the league average for goal kicking accuracy. So we've got 2 players that are well above the mark in that respect right now. Guys, I know there are a bunch of players that probably missed the top 5 that you could argue and make a case for. And I want you to do that in the comment section, but I will give them some honorable mentions just so that my head doesn't get completely torn off. And I'll be damned if there's another player outside of these 5 that I may have missed. That'd obviously be a massive blunder on my end. But starting with Brayden Maynard, slightly up on all his averages relative to his career so far. He's just a bull, he's dogged, you know what you're gonna get from him. He's been someone who hasn't raised his colours all season despite our poor performances in some of the games. He's always been there and held his head high, which has been great. As well, moving on to Josh Deos, good outside run with 23 disposals, probably not impacting the scoreboard as much as he has in previous seasons so far. So I think he's also still got another gear to go. Darcy Cameron was really hard to leave out. Before the Lions game, I would have had him in the top 3, and I'm pretty sure he went into the game with an injury and he was reduced to pretty much a forward role for the most part, leaving Mason Cox to do a really good job in the ruck against McInerney, mind you. But I think in the end, just that low impact game against Lions and a massive game in the context of our season, I couldn't put him in there. Again, I'm pretty sure you guys will be more than comfortable putting him in there because his previous games before that were unbelievable. He's averaging 2 intercept marks to go along with a goal a game, which is absolutely massive for a ruck forward. And his ruck work is commendable around the ground and applies great pressure. So, stiff to miss, but somebody had to do it, and that was me. Brodie Myercheck, always providing a marking option and playing undersized against the key backmen in the leagues. You know, the Harris Andrews, the Sam Taylors. These guys are giants, and Myercheck, albeit is a big boy, he's not exactly 6'6" like a lot of these backmen are, and he's not exactly an aerial forward either. He'll provide a contest in the air, but he's more renowned for his pressure when the ball hits the deck, and needs to be a second tall forward or a third tall forward, but he has to play the pseudo key forward role while we have players like Dan McStay out at the moment. Lastly, we got Paddy Lipinski, who leads the league in forwards for intercept possessions, averaging 4.8 per game. And I've mentioned in videos before, his effort and intelligence and IQ around the ground to be in the right position at the right time. He's a beneficiary of that, and that's why he's able to accrue these intercept possessions that he's earning in dangerous positions, mainly in our forward half. So a lot of these players have been mentioned in depth in the analysis that I do, talking about their key moments. So if you've missed any of those videos, consider watching those games and maybe start with the Lions vs Pies game, as I've referenced that quite a number of times in this video. That's all for today, guys. We'll see you next time. Go Pies.